Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome in tonight to another episode of Between the Hedges. Glad to be back. Um, Matthew, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Just getting ready for this podcast to get started. Ready to talk about our topics.
Yeah, it's been a minute since you and I have been on here. Um, I guess it was Friday. So, yeah, we had a Heisman winner. And Dad and I were able to preview that on a Saturday right before it happened. So any of y'all that are tuning in watching this one, definitely go back and watch that one. We gave a good breakdown of who we thought would win the award, and it turns out, we both agreed that it would be Jayden Daniels, and it was. Um,
Yep.
so I know you didn't get to give your prediction, but I would assume that would have been yours as well. You want to give a quick
Yes.
reason why?
Yeah, it was going to be Jayden Daniels. And we can get more into that. Because that's one of the topics that we get to talk about as reason who was the better Heisman season to season, things like that. So I would say Jayden Daniels was definitely my pick. If not, I would have been fine with Penix Jr. as well. He did a pretty good. He had a pretty good season as well.
He did, and let's just roll with that right now. I think that ultimately Jaden Daniels won this because you got to the last month, maybe month and a half of the season. There was a 4 or 5 game stretch there in particular where Penix just kind of fell off a little bit statistically. He had a lower passer rating, a lower completion percentage, not as many touchdowns, not as many yards, including, I mean, both games against Oregon. Yes, he won, and ultimately that's what you want to do as a quarterback. You want to lead your team to victory, right? But statistically, he took a little bit of a dip. He wasn't as consistent as Jayden Daniels was all year. And Daniels, like I've said a lot already, carried his team to 9 wins and maybe to 10 in their bowl game. So um, I think it plus that along with Daniels just being the statistical outlier, he had more yards total and more total touchdowns than anybody else that was up for it. And so I think that's ultimately why he took home the Heisman.
Yeah, I 100% agreed with that. Just because with Penix and where he was playing, Washington is in the Pac. What division are they in? Um, they're in the Big Big Ten,
Yeah, so they're
right?
moving to the Big Ten next season.
Moving to the Big Ten. They're coming from what though? I
The
can't
Pac
remember.
Pac-12, but they just take the top two teams. They don't have divisions. And the Big Ten and SEC are going divisionless next year as well.
Which will be quite interesting with the amount of teams that are in there that are pretty stout. But anyways, Michael Penix, coming from the Pac-12, their competition really isn't that stout compared to uh, Jane Daniels being in the SEC. Majority of the teams are pretty competitive, as you could say. And you can kind of agree with me on that. So I think as Penix was dropping, um, the teams that he was playing weren't that competitive, so he couldn't really. I mean, he should have had great stats, but he was just being kind of not lazy, just nonchalant with how he played the game. Um, so I think with Jayden Daniels, he was fighting for everything. Like he earned that Heisman trophy for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's part of carrying your team, right? And I know Dad's watching. He's not with us tonight. He says go Dogs in the chat. Go Dogs always. So thanks for tuning in, even though you couldn't be on here with us tonight. Appreciate it. Um, but yeah, I mean that's part of carrying your team, right? You fight for every yard. You have to make the spectacular plays. But see, here's the other thing. There were times where it looked like Penix might have been pressing a little bit, and Jayden Daniels did not do that, even though he led the country with, you know, the most plays over 20 yards.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that by watching his tape from this season because it didn't really ever look like he was forcing anything. It just
Right.
came easier to him this year than last year. And that's the credit to him putting in all the work this offseason and the coaching staff for um, pushing him to be his best that he could be. Now that also begs the question though. We've had a few good like Heisman seasons in a row, really, but really the last two have just been kind of like, whoa, we haven't seen that before. Um, so do we think that, Caleb Williams last year had the better Heisman season, or did Jayden Daniels this year have a better Heisman season?
Would say Jayden Daniels. Just because if you look at Caleb Williams this year, what did he do?
Yeah, I know, but we're evaluating him in his Heisman year. So, he had 52 total touchdowns last year and won the Heisman. Daniels had 50 this year and won the
What
Heisman.
was his total yards last year with Caleb Williams? Because
Uh,
I know Jayden Daniels had 4,900.
he was just shy of 5,000.
Really, he was really close to 5K, which is insane for 12 games, almost 13. But I would say Jayden Daniels. He's more of a um,
So, uh,
NFL ready quarterback for sure.
oh, really? You'd take it that far?
Yeah.
So, Caleb Williams last season had 4,500 passing yards. Um, his total yardage was, I'll get back with you on that. Um, but
That's all good.
the reason for, the question here is because they really both had incredible seasons, right?
Oh
Um,
yeah, of course.
and they so they both kind of had to overcome bad offensive lines, at least initially.
Mhm.
LSU's offensive line is up for the Joe Moore Award now because of their growth this season. Um, but USC's offensive line last year sucked. Their defense
Yeah.
also sucked. Same thing with LSU this year. I mean, they're pretty mirror images of each other, um,
Mhm.
except for the roster is just better for LSU. They just did not perform to that level, that standard that they needed to. But Daniels just absolutely carried them. I think he had the better season as well, just because of um, what he had to overcome playing in the SEC, playing an SEC schedule. in those defenses. And man, if he wouldn't have gotten knocked out against Alabama, um, he might have pulled them through that one too to win two straight against Alabama, which not many quarterbacks can say that. Um, so
It would have
that's
been
why,
nice to see him in the SEC championship too. I was really hoping to see Jayden Daniels and Carson Beck go at it with each other.
yeah,
Um, that would have been a really fun game for sure.
um,
Along with what Alabama and Georgia did as well.
right. Well, I think we got the two best teams, so we got a really good
Yeah,
matchup. But I would have liked to see Jayden with another opportunity to face Georgia. I know he got kind of uh, daddied last year by you,
yeah.
you know, picked
Jalen
up
Carter.
by Jalen Carter, but um, you know, I didn't see that happening this season because Georgia's defense wasn't near as dominant. But your wife is in the chat saying, "Who would you like to see win the Heisman?"
No, like for this year.
I guess she didn't say this year or next year, so we can take it either way. It'd be open-ended.
I mean, for this year, it was Jaden Daniels. Uh, Next
But
year, I mean, it depends on who's having a good season. It's
but
kind
who would
of
you like if you could pick out of a hat from the guys that we know are returning or are supposed to return? She says this year. So who would we have liked to have seen win it? Well, that's a little bit different of a question. I would say, selfishly, I wanted to see, you know, Brock Bowers stay healthy all season and really put
uh,
up some gaudy numbers at tight end and really push the media and the voters to have a hard decision to make. Um,
either
I
him or Marvin Harris.
Yeah, and I mean those two guys are really the two non-quarterbacks that really had a shot, I would say, at winning it. Um, but still, it's a quarterback award, so they probably would have ultimately given it to one of these guys that we've been talking about, Penix or Daniels.
Right,
She
right.
said, she said, yeah, Bowers. Bowers is special, so we're gonna miss him a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
But we
so
got
kind of
Delt. He's good.
we do have Delt. We'll see what he's got. I think he's gonna be incredible as well. Um, just kind of going on this conversation, you know, what do we look like? What do we think the Heisman race looks like next year? Who should the favorites be for going into next season?
I would say definitely Dylan Gabriel. Now that he's an Oregon Duck. Um, Dylan Gabriel for sure. If Carson Beck returns, he'll be my second. And um, there's gotta be, I want to say someone not a quarterback is just out there to hunt for it. Someone
I
is
mean,
third.
Ohio State's talking about putting together the biggest NIL package ever to try to keep Marvin Harrison Jr. So, I mean, if they keep
I don't
him,
think they will just because how he's played. I mean, how they've done to finish the year, the past couple years, losing to Michigan. He's been wanting to do that, but I think he will do better going into the NFL than trying to get some more money and stay in college.
I agree with that on the surface. I mean, if he had a freaking quarterback this year, he would have
Right.
had a much better season. So I guess in the back of his
Just
head, he
transfer to
thinks,
Georgia.
yeah, I mean, he thinks, okay, if I can get close to first round money, I can stay. And if with the portal, Ohio State gets a proven quarterback that's not gonna, not be able to hit the broadside of a barn, then maybe he improves his draft stock even more. Maybe wins a Heisman, maybe plays for a national championship. You know, there's always that. I would agree with you on Gabriel and Beck. Um, Everything sounds still points to Beck coming back, although the decision hasn't been made yet. So what are we waiting on, right? What's being talked about? Why is there such a deliberation? Um, that's a great question, but I think Dylan Gabriel should probably be the front runner at Oregon going into the season. Very experienced guy, fits into that system really well, and will probably put up some gaudy numbers next year, even in the Big Ten. Because, like I said, Oregon's my early pick to win the Big Ten.
Oh,
You
100%.
you already
Easily.
heard it. So,
Easily.
and then if Beck returns to Georgia, I mean, he's got to be in the discussion. Um, and Georgia's going to be one of, if not the favorite to win the SEC again. Even though they have a really tough schedule next year.
A
Um,
gauntlet.
but Beck shows out in games in Austin and in Tuscaloosa and gets out of there with a win.
And Mississippi. Don't
Yeah,
forget Ole Miss.
he goes, and
Because
then we go
they'll
to
have Dart.
Oxford. Yeah,
Hmm.
and I'm glad you brought up Dart. Dart, in his third year with um, in that system, so he might be a Heisman contender. And then don't sleep on Shedeur Sanders. They are going to put up some crazy numbers. And people are saying that he's already, getting some draft buzz himself when he's eligible to come out. So,
They finally got some offensive linemen. They went out, they just got a 5-star recruit to commit to them. And then they got 4 transfer offensive linemen to come in as well.
yep. Hey, you're kind of stomping on what I was going to talk about in a little bit. Watch out there. But
Amen.
no, you're right. That's exactly what Colorado needs. They need to protect Shador, and they need to go in and get after the quarterback too, right? For them to really improve and take that next step. Um,
Right.
so that just kind of rolls us right into our next topic here. Will Deion and Colorado get to where they want to go? And I think this question hinges on what we just mentioned. How much better do they get in the trenches? Um, can they actually stop a nosebleed next year? They're going to be able to put up 40 points a game probably.
Oh, can they
But
protect?
can they protect keep Shador upright and healthy? And can they get some stops? They're
Yeah.
moving to the Big 12, so they're going to be facing some, decent offenses that put up big
Hmm.
numbers, even though Oklahoma and Texas are leaving. So, um, do you think Dion gets Colorado back on the map, or is this going to be a dead end situation for him?
No, I think the first year was just getting them to learn his system and everything. He really just needs more guys to learn the system, get things going. I think this second year is going to really help Deion Sanders and the Colorado staff for sure. Um, so I think Deion will get them back on the map. I saw a report or a stat, something on Instagram or whatever, saying that Colorado, Deion Sanders and the Colorado team had like $113.8 million in revenue around the area. which is really good for them. So it definitely helps with their program, with people coming to the program and whatnot. So it's definitely looking good for Colorado for sure.
Yeah. And I think I'm getting a little bit of an echo on your end. I don't know what's going on, but I think there might need to be something turned down or something like that. But so yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So, just Dion being back, um, not back, but going to Colorado, Dion and everything that surrounds him, just the hype, the buzz, all of that, all the celebrities that were, hanging around the team, and just, you know, I'll just keep saying it's buzz that he brings. It's brought a lot of money to the Boulder area, like you mentioned, and that's going to help them continue to pour resources into finding better players. And, one of the biggest things is, you have all these coaches calling you today. Think of yourself as as an 18 to 22-year-old. It'll be cool to hear, have Dan Lanning call you and um, Lincoln Riley and Chip Kelly or some of these well-known coaches give you a call, but then you get a call from Dion. That's prime time. You know, are you answering that call? Because I would.
Oh, I would easily, yeah, sign me up.
And I'd be like, you know what, Dion, I've never been out to Colorado. I've heard it's beautiful. I've heard it's nice. I'll listen. You know, I'm a Georgia boy through and through. So if Kirby Smart called me, I'm there. You know, but if Dion called me, I'd have a tough decision to make because you'd be playing for prime time, right?
100%.
So just that kind of aspect to recruiting that he brings that nobody else brings.
Right.
So, um, he, so he had an interesting comment recently in an interview on the Dan Lebitard show. I don't know if you saw this, but um, he was asked about how, close they are and the direction of the program. And then he was asked about the portal. And this is kind of the comment that's gone viral here. And he says, quote, I'm in the portal like I'm not hard to find. I'm not hard to find, and guess what I'm finding? Linemen. You guys watched us play, and what did you say? If they had some of those guys, they would be right there. Guess what today is? Portal day, and I'm going to get those things you said I need. So it sounds like, not only is he, doing a good job bringing in the buzz and the hype and more players keep turning over that roster, he's going and filling holes on his roster
Yeah,
that he needs. So um,
easily.
I think that will ultimately be the difference. It took Kirby Smart 3 or 4 years to build up the depth and the strength and the grit of the program, build that culture, and you know win on the line of scrimmages. He
Hmm.
he got both sides of the line of scrimmage. He built it there and then went out. Um, so if you want to have success at the college level and at the pro level, you've got to be good on both sides of the ball on the lines. So um, I think Dion
He's
can do it.
he's
Who,
he's doing his job for sure. He's listening to the people, and a lot of that's what people want to see. So, um, if coaches listen to the people, get things done, get the people that they need, fill the holes, program will be good.
yeah, I agree. Um, Casey also commented, she said she gave us a question here.
Mm-mm.
So, do you think it is fair to compare current Heisman winners to winners from 10 years ago?
No,
Yeah.
no. It's a different ball game from now to 10 years ago for sure. Um, or from 10 years ago to now. So it's definitely a different ball game. I know when me and you were growing up, it's definitely different than what it was when we were growing up for sure. Um, I like to blame Tom Brady. Thank you for ruining football, making it soft,
I don't,
and LeBron for ruining basketball, making it soft as well. So
yeah, you just had to get that LeBron hate in there. Um,
of course,
I don't, I don't think it's fair. Just in the last 10 years, the game's changed so much. It's so much more on offense, and you've got tight ends that basically have to be like wide receivers, running backs that have to be like wide receivers, and vice versa. Quarterbacks that can run and throw a mile. Um,
hmm
and in the tight windows, it's just the game's evolved and it's much better than it ever has been. Um, you know, People can argue football used to be played better. I disagree. You have to be way more skilled to be a football player today than you've ever had to be.
oh,
So,
100%.
um, yeah. So, thank you, Casey, for that question. Anybody keep them coming. We'll answer them. Um, but I kind of saved the best for last here. We're between the hedges. We're a Georgia first podcast. I did want to hit the national topics here, but you know, we've got some big developments in the portal for Georgia.
hmm
It's now up to 15 players that are in the portal. So, and that's about right. Most programs will see about that many, go in and out every
Yeah.
season now. So it's not alarming. It's nothing to be, afraid of or concerned about. But there is a little bit of concern for our five-star quarterback. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I've been seeing it all over. Um, it, it's I don't think anything will happen. I think he's going to um stay with Georgia. Um, but if he is feeling like he wants to have playing time and wants to start coming right out of high school, I mean, I can't blame him. But if he wants to learn and grow before he gets on the field, stay at Georgia, bro.
Yeah.
That's the best program that you could stay. I mean, just look at Carson Beck. Carson Beck did it for 3 years. Um, Brock Vandegrift did for a couple of years before he transferred, and now he's going to be the starting quarterback at Kentucky, more than likely. Um, and then we still have Gunnar Stockton. Um, if Carson Beck leaves, Gunnar Stockton's going to be number one,
I mean, right
more
now
than likely.
you would probably say that, but you know we're mentioning Dylan Raiola because it's since come out that Georgia's now back in a dogfight to keep their five-star commit, verbal commit. Since May, Georgia had to, fight and scratch and claw to keep him from going to Ohio State, reportedly.
Mhm.
Well, not just reportedly, he was once committed there, right?
And he flipped.
and then we flipped him. Well, he was also being courted by Nebraska and USC then, and now Nebraska's back in the mix. So, there were some comments by Matt Rule after the season ended that he's like, if you want to get in the portal, it's going to cost you about 2 million to get a good quarterback. So it sounded to me like, yeah, that Nebraska might have the funds, but he didn't want to allocate them that way just to
Mm-hmm.
get on a quarterback. So now he's really trying hard to get Raiola. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that doesn't happen. Uh, because if Carson Beck does leave and he goes to the draft, which he still can do, and it's still being deliberated, in his mind, he's still considering it because he hasn't said I'm coming back.
Yeah.
Um, Raiola would win the job if Carson Beck leaves. Now, if Carson stays, he's got the advantage of being in the system longer, so Carson's going to start. And, you know, Kirby's going to give it's Carson's job to lose at that point. Now, Raiola might not beat him in spring or summer camp, but, um, I guess he could always overtake him during the season. But my point is, you if you're Georgia and Raiola flips back, Beck leaves, then what do you do? I think you've got to hit the portal hard then for a proven quarterback because I don't think Gunnar Stockton's quite ready yet. He's very, very talented, but I'll say it again. I've said it multiple times. Kirby does not like starting true freshmen or inexperienced quarterbacks from day one. He would want to have somebody who's experienced come in here and kind of hold it down until Gunner's ready to take the reins. Now, I know that's all a big if, but it's definitely something that could happen.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely could for sure. It's just who would we go after now?
well, that's a good question. Our backup and who would be the starter, Brock Vandegrift, is gone, like you said, committed to Kentucky. Dylan Gabriel went to Oregon. I just saw where Um, Riley Leonard from Duke just committed to Notre Dame.
And
So,
then Van Dyke went somewhere too.
right. Um, there's, I don't know. I don't know who they would want to go after. Um, but you would have to go after somebody, right?
Right.
I know we've got another five-star quarterback that's supposed to be in Raiola's class.
Hmm.
Um, but he's not the household name like Dylan Raiola. And Raiola is expected to be the transformational quarterback. I mean, we don't know how this all is going to turn out. It could not turn out any way that we expect it to, but I think that keeping Raiola is also I said Carson Beck returning is priority one. 1A is now keeping Raiola. You want to keep a guy like that in your program however you can to develop him. Because if you say, hey, look, dude, even if Carson comes back, you're the starter next season. You just got to learn this system as fast as you can and as well as you can going into next season.
Yeah,
So, um,
definitely we'll have to bust our tails to keep that man because he really has to evaluate everything. I would not chase money. I would not chase it.
well, and here's kind of something that not everybody knows. I mean, yes, Nebraska has money, so they can offer him, like you said, probably. I don't know that they would offer him more money or less money. That's not really I don't think that's the deciding factor here. Rayola's uncle, though, is on staff with Nebraska. So I actually did not know that until I read about it. Um, so with him being on staff there, it kind of makes sense why, he would even still consider to go there. You got a family member on another team's staff, you know, you got to consider it, right?
Yeah, but yeah, like I said, just evaluate everything before you make your decision. Because regardless, um, just because you have family over there doesn't mean you have to go.
True.
Because if you have a family member that's part of the staff, that doesn't mean you're going to get the starting position.
No, but I think his path to starting is sooner and there's less resistance there for sure.
Yeah.
Um, Now, what kind of team are you going to have around you? In Georgia, it's like you're getting the keys to a Ferrari. Nebraska, maybe a
Toyota
Toyota
Corolla.
Camry, you know, uh, a,
Toyota Corolla.
a Corolla that you got to, get to the level of a Ferrari. That's a taller task.
Yeah.
Um, but, just one last thing I wanted to point out here. So, like I said, we've got a total of um, 15 guys in the portal. And I hope with signing day being next Wednesday, uh, that Raiola stays, and he joins this loaded, 2024 class that we have, and that we're expected to sign. But, we did have Jackson Meeks, the wide receiver, sign with Syracuse. So
Hmm.
all the best to him. Wish him luck there. I think he'll get the opportunity that he wants. He's following our former DB coach to Syracuse to play, for them. So he has
Yeah.
committed. And then the defensive lineman Jonathan Jefferson signed with SMU. So um, those were the two commits that, just committed from the portal. Um, and then it looks like we got the extra three players in the portal: offensive lineman Alu Ba, wide receiver Logan Johnson, and wide receiver Zeed Haynes. So definitely some guys, that are more, I guess you would say, buried, if you want to call it, on Georgia's depth chart. Because but just because they're buried on Georgia's depth chart doesn't mean that they're garbage. It's just we have so many good players.
Oh, a
It,
ton.
it's easy to get stuck behind, somebody who's just a stud on Georgia's roster. So um,
Yeah.
we'll definitely be keeping a watch on all of these guys because of the 15, like I just said, there's only three that have signed. So we've got, 12 more guys that we got to know whether they're coming back or not. And then National Signing Day next Wednesday, um, to solidify the incoming freshman class. So a lot still to be decided in the coming weeks, as well as ramping up for the bowl game against Florida State,
Woo.
who,
Yeah.
who is their Florida's Attorney General is questioning the College Football Playoff Committee about Florida State being left out. So
I would too.
they're still
I would too.
on that. So I'm wondering how distracted um, Florida State's going to be going into that matchup. So
It would it might distract them a little bit, but I still think they're not the glue that Georgia is. So um, it's it's not going to be a pretty one for them, anyways.
I don't think so either, but I'm slightly biased, but uh, Georgia's better. So I don't see that going too well for Florida State. Dad also mentioned that Rayola's dad played for Nebraska and was a star player. So that's the other thing factoring in here. Is it family following in, your dad's footsteps, or do you create your own legacy and go to Georgia and win a national
Cre-
championship?
Create your own legacy, bro.
So we will see about that. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap this up tonight?
Um, I would definitely say for sure that um, my buddy Keaton Mitchell did not follow his dad in his footsteps. He's a running back. His dad was a corner. They went to two separate colleges. Yes, he ended up with the same pro team,
Hmm.
but that's pro. That's well deserved, you know? And Keaton is actually doing pretty good for the Ravens, Baltimore Ravens right now. Actually, he's second string for them, which is absolutely insane to be a rookie. Um, but I would say if it was my decision and I had my dad go somewhere, I would want to create my own legacy and go elsewhere um, because it's ultimately my decision. It shouldn't have the family make my decision for me.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll keep mine kind of short here. I just think that these these kids, and I say kids, they're not that much younger than us, right? But these college students now and college student athletes have much, much more to think about these days and much more responsibility than than we realize. And I really can't imagine making the decisions that they have to make about their future now. Um, I do think it's great that they get paid now, at least a little bit of something, because it's only fair that they do. But that also brings more responsibility, you know, and to whom much is given, much is expected, right?
Right.
So we expect so much of them as fans, especially. We expect them to be perfect and all be on their game at all times, and that's just not possible. We're human. So I just, all the guys out there that are making decisions about their future, if I could give them any advice, I would just say, you know, all you can do is take into account all of the factors, all of the details, and make the best decision for you and your family. That's ultimately what matters. My opinion doesn't matter. Every other fan out there, it doesn't matter what they think, where you should go. You got to do what's best for you and your family and keep that number one. So, all right. Well, another great show tonight. Um, Again, thank y'all for tuning in. We are just thrilled to do this. It's been lots of fun. I know we are, let's see, it's Tuesday, so we'll be back at it Friday night with another episode. Hopefully, at 9 o'clock again. But although we said last time, Friday's just the late night, so stay tuned. It could be later.
Hmm.
Um, but we appreciate everyone for tuning in. And Matthew, what do we want them to do?
Like, subscribe, comment down below. Also, hit that ring bell for notifications for lives.
Yep. We appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good night. And as always, go dogs.